Good morning, Mark.
Good morning.
Good morning, ladies.
Do you know what I find so fascinating is that you couldn't find a publisher for this book. Is that true?
That is true. To give you the background, and at the risk of doing a bit of product placement,
No, put it in there.
Hold it the other way. We've got it up ourselves.
We've got it up ourselves. There we go.
That's a photograph of a commemorative dinner that the Spartans had at the Carlton Club in September. So the background is I wrote the book during the lockdown. And then I went to a literary agent and he said he could, find me a publisher. And he contacted most of the, main publishing houses. And unfortunately, he sat me down in his office after a few months and said, look, I've had some positive complimentary comments about the book. People kindly say it's well written, it's amusing in parts. But I'm not going to sugar the pill, Mark. They're not going to publish this book because, the zeitgeist in the industry is overwhelmingly Remain. You're an arch Brexiteer, and they're just not going to publish your book. So that was a bit frustrating because I thought it was important to tell what happened from a Brexiteer's point of view. And I was having a chat with Nadine Dorries, one of your colleagues, Esther, but this is before she was the culture secretary, by the way. And she said, look, I know a bit of this story. It's important that it's told. Go to Amazon and self-publish it. And I knew one or two people at Amazon and I had a conversation. And anyway, cut a long story short, the book was published a week ago. And so if anyone wants to buy it, you go on the Amazon website. It's in hardback, it's in paperback, or an e-version on Kindle. You order it the normal way, like any other book.
Mark. It's a #1 bestseller. But what I was going to say to you, realistically, they should have looked at the numbers in the country.
Absolutely.
How many people voted for Brexit? How many people wanted to read this inside story? So really, a job beckons for you within the publishing industry too, Mark.
But that just, the fact that publishers didn't publish really shows you how they don't take what the public want to read into hand. They just take what they want the public to read, which is another example of us being controlled. So I'm really glad it got published because it's really quite a shocking book.
Well, what it does is it tells it does what it says on the tin. It tells the inside story of what really went on. Esther, you'll remember this very well. We had a referendum. We put a booklet, or rather the government did. They spent £9 million of British taxpayers' money, putting a booklet through every door in Britain before the referendum that said, this is your decision, the government will implement what you decide. Then the British people had the temerity to give them the wrong answer. They voted for British self-government, which isn't what the government were expecting them to do. So then the British establishment, including some in the media and in the House of Commons and in the civil service, connived effectively to do everything that they could in order to overturn the democratic decision of the British people. And in the end, it was a bunch of backbench Conservative MPs that stopped them. They very nearly got away with it. And this is the inside story of what was really, really going on. It takes you into some of the meetings of the ERG. It actually takes you inside, as it were, the back corridors of Parliament, that to which most members of the public, unfortunately, would never get access. And it explains how a bunch of Tory MPs fought their own government and the establishment to protect British independence and freedom, and how we won, hence Spartan victory, rather than
Mark,
Spartan
you
defeat.
were also the chair of the European Search Group as well. When you said the ERG group there, I'm just explaining it so everybody knows what it was. And to become a Spartan, you had to vote 3 times against Theresa May's deal. So I am somebody who was in cabinet and stood down because we weren't doing the Brexit vote. I am two-thirds of a Spartan because I voted twice against it. But what I'm going to ask you on the third vote, and you were proved right, Mark, but on the third vote, did you ever worry, because this was the odds we had to draw up, that we would have remained? Because if it hadn't have been Theresa May's vote, what we were saying at the time, then we could have well remained in. So can you tell me what you were thinking at the time? Did you ever worry that it could have flipped the other way and your vote then as a Spartan could have meant we were still in Europe?
Well, firstly, Esther, you resigned, from cabinet on a point of principle over Brexit, and you should be commended and forever remembered for having had the moral courage to do that. Now, with regard to the third vote, the reason that we held out was because Theresa May's deal, the withdrawal agreement, which remember was a draft international treaty, basically kept us in the European Union. When you actually read the detail, it was 585 pages of A4. It was sort of Euro verbiage. It was deliberately written that way to be difficult to read. But I was the vice chairman of the RG at the time. I'm the chairman now. Jacob was the chairman at the time. And by the way, he's very kindly endorsed the book. He says, if you voted for Brexit, you really ought to buy it. So bless you for that, Jacob. But what the book does is it takes that 585 pages of gobbledygook and it translates it into simple, everyday layman's English so that any member of the public can understand what that treaty really meant. And the bottom line is, it would have very rapidly led to us joining a customs union. If you're in a customs union, you don't control your external economic policy. You can't control your trade with other countries. You can only do that through the European Union. So you're not really a sovereign country.
Mark, I want to thank you for being